Welcome back to the Modern Day Way podcast, where we bring on leaders and providers from our community, giving you the opportunity to learn from them about what has got them where they are today. Today, I've got Murphy Alex Wells, business owner, produces a variety of successful podcasts, and also produces mine.
I'm actually producing this one right now.
So you can tell he's got a variety of skill sets, and he's going to actually talk into the microphone. Maybe the first guest that I bring on that actually successfully talks into the microphone.
You're welcome.
Yes, thank you, Murph. And so Murph, tell me, well, first off, thank you for coming on. Tell me a little bit about yourself and what's gotten you where you are today.
Ooh, a whole lot of mistakes, not a lot of talent. And just being too stupid to quit has got me like where I am today. And when people think about the me that they see, or probably the me that like you're interviewing, they see a pretty patriotic guy, which was not always the case. But as an entrepreneur myself, I realized that it's my obligation to create opportunities for people. And that's brought me amazing people like you into my life, and producing podcasts like this, which is a lot of fun. They see my social media platform, which really in the grand scheme of things is not that big. Like I've got 10,500 followers, but that was kind of like the little goal I set for myself. Like at 10,000, I'm going to stop trying. That's invariably true.
But then you started getting other people followers.
Yeah.
Started focusing on other people and providing them value instead of focusing on your own stuff.
I made myself credible, and then other people were like, hey, how do I do that? And that is very rewarding. A lot of people see my relationship with First Form. I think it's 2 pictures on my timeline that are pinned with Andy Frisella. I worked for him for 4 years, all things said and done. And that was an immaculate experience that made me a better athlete, a better salesperson. And when I worked at First Form for the first 3.5, I was an entry-level warehouse guy. And then I worked in sales, and then I worked in sales coaching. I split off to do this. And then they were like, hey, we love you to consider like maybe doing some contract work for us, because not only do we think we can help each other, but we just can't take people from other departments right now, and you just move to do the thing that we need. So that's a really cool relationship that I try to like make the most of every single day. Mm-hmm. And as far as like what I think of how I got here in terms of like the story, I mean, I say it all the time. I'm by no means special. I don't have a lot of skills. I don't have a lot of talents. If I couldn't talk and now edit content, I'd probably be dead or in jail.
You listed off as one of your accomplishments to me earlier. Successfully not in prison.
Yeah, I did not always avoid, days or weeks at a time in a jail cell. But I mean, you lose the battle, you win the war. That's what and I know a lot of people who have been to prison who are doing better than I am in life. So to anyone who's out there maybe in a spot where you're like struggling, or you feel like there's no way up, you got to way up. You just got to be patient. You just got to have a plan. You got to follow that plan. And that's what I've done, kind of.
So having a plan and sticking to it, that is so hard to do. Mm-hmm. I mean, why do most people not succeed? They don't stick with the action that they put in front of themselves. And you successfully did that. You went, a year ago. And I mean, I've seen you grow over the past year, and it's been crazy. I mean, the different things that you've been able to accomplish, the value you've been able to bring people, the value you've been able to bring me. I mean, it's been just admirable, to say the least.
I appreciate that. And I think why most people can't follow their own plan is because most people don't know what they're trying to get out of it. To me, in 2016, I'm about 180 pounds right now. I'm fairly athletic. I do jujitsu. I do Muay Thai. I really try to take good care of my personal and my spiritual hygiene in terms of like how I treat myself, how I love myself, which is a battle. If you go back 8 years ago, I was 225 pounds. I was skipping class every day as a Missouri State Bear. I was getting arrested very frequently. And all I cared about was just being blunt and honest with everybody, I was railing a lot of coke, and I was stoned all day, and I was drinking Hennessy and eating pizza, and I was driving to like Colorado to run like hundreds of pounds back to my college town. And what I was doing was I was committing spiritual suicide. Mm-hmm. I wasn't building any character. I was not trustworthy. I was in a fraternity, which I love my fraternity. And I think a lot of real good, not just like, can be taken away from a fraternity. It's like, it's what you do with it. And I was just all about barking at girls. And I was trying to cover up the pain of being a kid who didn't really have a strong father figure. who didn't know what he was good at and who didn't know what his future was. I like I said, I only have like one real skill, and that's just anything that has to do with communication. Everyone from Mark Joe to Matt Joe to Andy Frisella, no one is more full of shit than me.
Everyone loves a good rebound story, right? But the thing that I love about you is that you're not scared to tell your rebound story, because rebound stories are really what it was able to help pull somebody out of that, that valley that they're stuck in. And it's beautiful to hear you talk about it, because you don't talk about it trying to cover it up with a pillow. You talk about it saying, hey, if you're in that position, that's where I was and I'm here now. Yeah. And I mean, if we had more people who could do that, we'd have a lot less people stuck in that valley.
That's why I tell that story the way that I do, as much of it as I can tell. And for a lot of people who are stuck in that place, it's because they don't have anyone to look to and say, well, I can do that. And now they can look at like an athlete or like a musician, this person who has this very specific skill set and is able to brand themselves off that. I am one of the least athletic people you'll ever meet. Like, I didn't play sports growing up. Like, what was it? They told me I couldn't join the junior varsity volleyball team like when I was a sophomore. And so I was a kid who really didn't believe in himself because I was like lacking a story. And so I went down the villain path. And Marilyn Manson said this maybe 20 years ago on the Bill O'Reilly show, like right after Columbine. And they asked him, they're like, so if you're this, and he was a writer before that. He was kind of like me. He has the ability to communicate. Bill O'Reilly was like, so you're really well spoken. You're incredibly intelligent. You're very empathetic. Why all the cursing and the F word and the exhibitionist and all the black and all the makeup and all the things that Marilyn Manson was infamous for back in the day? And he was like, I think heroes are boring. I think villains are easier to fall in love with because their story is much more interesting, and you have to wonder what makes someone break bad, for lack of a better word. Now, later on in life, Marilyn Manson was ousted to not be a good person at all. Very, very poor character. Still love a lot of his music. Can't help it. I wanted to be a villain because when I was a little kid, it was really easy to make me cry. I was bullied. I didn't have any big brothers or sisters. I wasn't great at making friends. I was effectively raised by like cartoons and cereal and comic books, which I've always said. So I had this like fantastical brain, and I always like looked up to heroes, but like when you'd play a video game, it was more fun to be a villain. They always had the better powers. It was always just something that made you feel good about the catharsis of being the bad guy. And so the thing you learn about being the bad guy is there's very little fulfillment in it. No matter how much money you have, no matter how many girls or guys you run through. Like, I know girls that are villains who are way better at it than I was to this day. And I respect their hustle more than anything. You have to like take it upon yourself when you're sitting in a jail cell thinking about like, oh, now I understand why they took my shoes and my ties out of my jackets, because you're thinking about ending it. It just becomes apparent that you need to make a change. And I called my mom from jail way too many times. She raised me practically by herself. And when I started really investing in my physical self, I realized that there was like this linear progression. If you're not taking care of yourself physically, I recommend anyone, that's where it starts, because it's the simple thing. Just get moving. Go to the gym, go to jiu-jitsu, go to boxing, go to Tai Chi. I don't care. Go to yoga. Something that challenges you.
It raises your dopamine.
It teaches you character. Building muscle, losing fat, just creating the body that you want. It's the vessel for everything. But like you learn something, and it's like, that's not really where the hard work is. That showing up to the gym is the hardest part, they say. You got to eat right. That's where the discipline is. And once you start taking care of your innards, you start taking care of your nutrition, your body starts to compose itself on a different level chemically. And you start making even better decisions from there. And it's like, oh, okay, well, look, I built this brain, but I don't just want to be swole, which I was never a bodybuilder. I will probably never bodybuild, but I've always had kind of like the fighter body, lean, somewhat muscular, but like quick and spry once I got my body together. You have to feed your brain, and it's reading, and it's what you pay attention to in media. And I became a student of YouTube. Like everything I learned about fitness and entrepreneurship, before I worked for Andy, that is, all just sitting there on YouTube for friggin' 8 hours a day because it was free. It was free. And this is before the adpocalypse started. So I was just sitting there absorbing and downloading information instead of going to class. And then finally, I think the fourth level of that, which is something where I see you, very much succeeding at is you have to get to that spiritual level of your journey, which is when you think about eternity, when you think about the choices you make in this life, it's not about here and now. It's about like, not even just your legacy, but it's that metaphysical, that spiritual sense of like, you can't create or destroy energy. It just turns into something else. What's the energy going to be of my lifetime when I'm gone from this place? How did I benefit people? So that's kind of how I think my journey has taken place over the last 8 years.
Yeah, I know. I look back on it right now too, and I'm like, holy cow, it's been a long time, right? Mm-hmm. But I've come a long ways as well. And I mean, our stories are very similar. I love how you're more out forward, pushing your story out than I am. I keep mine kind of tucked behind because I don't want people to see me as that now, because even though I'm so much beyond that, right? Mm-hmm. And for me, coming out of that was a spiritual journey. I mean, after doing X, Y, and Z and really just, making my entire life go to, I went to jail 3 times in a year. I went and just did a whole bunch of stupid stuff. Just a couple of times, no big deal, right? No, but I mean, that's what I was telling myself at the time, right? Get yourself in a bunch of debt. You have different attorney fees you have to pay off, and you're stuck in this rut now, right? Yeah. You were doing a whole bunch of stupid stuff that was not really above the law, right? And for me, it was getting myself into trouble a handful of times for me to really wake up. And I feel like there's a lot of kids out there, right? And some of them get themselves in so much trouble they can't get themselves out of it. Yeah. And so that's something that if there's somebody out there listening to this right now, don't keep pushing that boundary, right? If you can save yourself before it's too late, do it, right? Because some people just aren't so lucky, Right. I got myself into enough trouble to where I was able to eventually kind of pull myself out of it. And for me, it was the Lord's Prayer. I had the Lord's Prayer keep coming in my head over and over and over again while I was stacking boxes in a warehouse 12 hours a day. And it was crazy because I had this job and I was working so hard, but we weren't able to listen to podcasts. We weren't able to listen to music. We weren't able to do anything, right? But we're stacking boxes 12 hours a day. And so you really get into your head at that point, right? You're faced with your own thoughts and your own demons really come into occurrence, right? And you either fight those demons or you let those demons take over, right? And for me, it was the Lord's Prayer that was fighting those demons for me. Getting out of that was an awakening, right? And I felt like I started to grow a relationship with God. I felt like I was able to actually communicate with myself in a healthy way all of a sudden. And I started working out again. I started doing these other things to better myself. And I mean, we're talking 8 years ago, and I look back on it and I'm like, whoa. Right? Like I woke up. I'm able to look at my life now and be really proud of the accomplishments I've had. I wish I wouldn't have done those things. I wish that I could have made it through that without having any of those experiences. But having those experiences is something that you can be able to bring to other people and be like, hey, you don't have to do that.
Yeah. And that's honestly why I've never shied away from telling anyone anything. I have always had to prove myself to myself more than anyone else. And it's funny because when I was going through like the deepest valleys of what I was going through, I was just like, oh God, I just wish I was going through anything but this. Like, I just wish life was easy again. If I wouldn't have partied and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, I made those decisions for a reason. And I'm sitting here in the justice system. I'm sitting here crying to my parents. I'm sitting here working 3 jobs, trying to pay bills and pay the lawyer fees and pay the court fees and pay my restitutions or whatever they call it. It just is what it is. It was like the $75 a month. I don't care. I don't pay it anymore. I was so deep entrenched in like my own self-pity and my own self-hate that the day I think I just decided to do something about it was when I looked in the mirror and I hated what I saw. Mm-hmm. I was like, dude, this is just gotta go. And I could see what made my body the way it was. It was cocaine, pizza, and Hennessy. It just is what it is. So I'm like, well, I've done this for 5 years because I started kind of like hanging out, getting off the front porch, as they say. I started doing that right about 18 because I was a really good kid, actually. I was a sweet, very polite, very well-behaved young man. My mom raised me to have impeccable manners because she would bring me out to the restaurant she worked at. I would work at that restaurant. And she let it be known. She's like, hey, if you embarrass me in front of my regulars, like, there's going to be hell to pay. And sometimes I did. And there was hell to pay. I didn't want that. But I also recognize that, like, this is something that you have very, very well, is people around my age group did not know how to speak to adults. Like, when an adult speaks to you, you're supposed to, like, look at them in the eye, firm handshake. Like, be a man or be a polite young lady, whatever, what have you. Like, most kids my age, like, yeah, it's cool, bro. Yeah. And I was like, did I become that over the last few years? Because keep in mind, I was messed up a lot of the time. I don't know what I said. And so I looked at myself and I hated myself. And I just made a post earlier this week. I'm like, nothing good comes from self-hatred. And I'd amend that to like, I'd started with self-hatred, but like it had to be a process into like self-love. If you think self-love is going out 5 nights a week, if you think it's railing lines of whatever, even me going to festivals is not self-love. It's something I do to entertain myself. It's something I do to cut loose. It's a privilege. It's not a right. I don't need that. I just enjoy it. I just had to be kind of honest with myself. Like, why do I always wake up feeling like I hate myself? And I know more people do that than not. I know a lot of people when they get saved and when they turn to Christ and that walk of life, they start. It's not just because you accept Jesus into your life. It's because you start following the teachings. It's because you start listening to the word as well as accepting that. That's been the perspective I've had. And I was like, okay, well, if I have to follow teachings, who do I want to be like? I don't want to be like who I've been. And so I looked at like Andy Frisella, because in Springfield, that's where his business has got to start. That's where I got my fitness journey started. And the fact that this was a guy from St. Louis who I knew where he went to high school, and everyone knows where you go to when you go to high school in St. Louis, you'll find out within 5 minutes of meeting someone. I was like, well, this guy had a crazy weight loss transformation. This guy's doing super well, and he has no problem telling it like it is. I'm like, what if I just start telling it like it is? What's the worst that can happen? A lot of people think it's corny. A lot of people think it's an act. And they meet me in person, like they don't see me on social media or whatever. And they're like, oh, you're like the exact same person in your social media. I'm like, yes. And that's why my social media has done well at all. I have nothing to hide whatsoever.
You're authentic.
Something.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that you really chimed in something there that was just, I want to harp on it a little bit. And I want to say it a little differently. Being a steward, right, of what you were given. And you can be a steward of your finances. You're given money. You can be a steward of your house. You take care of your house. Or you can be a steward of your body, right? Take care of your body. You were blessed with this body and now you need to take care of it. Clearly railing lines of cocaine, eating pizza and drinking whatever you said, Hennessy.
And
on a regular basis is not
daily.
Daily, right? Is not being a good steward of what you were given. That was something that I kind of harped on when I was coming out of that sort of similar place. Was I want to have respect for other people, but that has to start with respect for myself. Yep. How do I find respect for myself? Well, I have to be a steward. How can I be a steward? Well, I have to take care of the things that God has given me, right? And if I don't take care of those things, then I'm not going to have respect for anybody, let alone myself. And so, I really think that there's so much that is presented there that people try to not even focus on, right? And they're just kind of hiding from their shadow in a way that if people were able to look at it in a little bit more of a clear picture, look through that pane of glass and see, oh, wow, if I respect myself, I'm going to be able to make a difference. I'm going to be able to spread love and knowledge, and people will be able to not only appreciate that, but I'll be able to actually have genuine relationships. I'll be able to have, genuine feelings, because when you're numbing yourself, which that is what you're doing, you're numbing your feelings, right? Yeah. You're numbing your reality. You're not going to be able to have a clear picture into your life, let alone anybody else's.
It's also, to me, it's a generational thing as well. And it's that as a millennial, we're constantly, and I think rightfully so, we're constantly labeled as entitled, kind of good for nothing, and kind of a dredge on society. And they asked a series, like a think tank of millennials, like, so how much money do you think you need to just live an average life, just be average, comfortable? And they're like $500,000. I'm like, what? You need $500,000 for what? Like, dude, when I decided to leave First Form, where I was making about 6 figures a year, I left to live off $2,000 a month in my business. And I was happy. My girlfriend at the time wasn't happy, which I understand. But she's someone who, again, kind of is able to fight away that millennial label. And it's because she does the work in herself to be who she wants to be a pillar of her community. And I, even getting away from that relationship, I just kind of had to be honest about saying the reason I hate myself is because no one's getting anything from me. And I don't mean like no one's able to like use me and abuse me. It's that I'm not providing value, because I was always into like the motivational talk. I was always into the speeches, even before and that was kind of like, Andy was kind of the guy who like got me away from that, because he'll just tell you some real shit. Yeah. Andy doesn't care about being rah. He'll go up on stage, like 1,000 people in front of him, and he'll come off the dome. I'm like, oh, I guess I need to hear that. And being a steward of your own life is a journey, and it's a never ending one. It's what I love so much about like the jiu-jitsu community is like when you start a martial art, especially like as a white belt, they say it's the most important belt you can have, because like you've dedicated yourself to a lifelong process of learning. And when I stopped acting like I had to look like I had everything figured out, when I stopped acting like I had to be Mr. Popularity, Mr. Congeniality, when I really took the steps to ask myself hard questions and receive hard answers, that's when the changes started to happen. And I started to like myself more. Now, self-love is still a challenge. It's still hard as shit, dude. Mm-hmm. But what you said actually has a lot of application even today, because I mean, I'm not even least bit quiet about the fact that I still am a huge advocate of cannabis. But when I've started to dip towards that mentally negative side, and it perpetuates for months or even years at a time, you have to make a hard change, and you realize that like, okay, I'm using this as a fix-all something. It can be used for something, maybe for recreation, but you don't need to be recreational all day. Wait till you're about to go to bed. Wait till all your shit's done. You don't need to sit here and block everything out. Those feelings that are so loud that you want to numb out, the more you avoid them, the more they're going to pile up on you, and the more that they are going to have to be rectified. It gets the harder you go down that hole, the more you push it off. So I definitely encourage people, if you're going through something and you're self-medicating, look, I like to have a good time, but don't let your good time be your one-size-fits-all fix for everything, because it's not. It's just building debt that you will have to pay with yourself. There's no one you don't want to be in debt to, least of all yourself.
Yes, I mean that's just the way you put that was a little differently than I would have put it, but it's very, very clear and crystal clear at that. And it's a numbing mechanism, right? It is. No matter how you like to look at it, it is. And it's something that's coming so much more prevalent in our society today. And people are looking at it, oh, it's 100% okay. Yeah, just like anything else that might be okay, too much of it's not okay.
Absolutely.
Right? You can overdo. If I eat too many strawberries, I'm not going to feel good. If I eat too many bananas, I'm not going to feel good. Right?
Natural sugar and carbs still.
And I mean, I know a lot of people that use marijuana, right? And they're buddies of mine that I respect, right? And I don't disrespect them or hold them in some kind of different category in my mind because they do that, right? But how they use that, or because they're doing that, is what keeps me respecting them, right? Because they're actually having this whole level of accountability to themselves as well, because they're treating it like the substance that it is, right? And so don't overdo it. Is kind of what I'm saying. When you overdo anything, it's a shot in the dark.
You can overdo fitness. Like, don't get me wrong. I know some people who are runners. My buddy Mark has run 111 miles in one single go. It was a competitive thing. And like, he's a different kind of athlete.
He's a freak.
He's an absolute freak. His brother Matt too.
They're both freaks.
They are two of the three most disgusting natural athletes I've ever met in my life.
I think I saw him like front squatting 415. I didn't even know you could front squat 415.
You sure can.
Yeah.
You absolutely can. And like, I've seen Mark do some disgusting things. Both of them. I worked with both of them. And I'm not saying that they overdo their fitness. Like, they are well calibrated because they have figured out what they want and they go for it. But too much of anything is a bad thing. I know people who are so deep into their beliefs politically that to them, and this isn't a partisan thing. I know it on the left. I know it on the right. It's very little in the middle, because those people usually aren't too convicted in anything, which is okay. That's fine. I actually appreciate that a little bit more. There are people who believe that their side is the only side. And what you do is you cut yourself off from the other perspectives that have something to teach you. It's the same thing with drugs. It's the same thing with alcohol. It's the same thing with money too. Mm-hmm. Money is one of the most dangerous drugs of all time. Not because like you can overdose on it, but because it makes you more of what you are. Well, if what you are is dejected, hurt, sick somewhere, you're going to use that money for something that is going to make you more of that. That's like whenever like you and I have worked together, I've never been a stickler on price. I'm like, I just want to help. My bills are paid. I'm taken care of. I have my house. I have my savings. I have my investments, but I'm not money hungry because when I've had a lot of money, when I was driving, you know, X amount of dollars, 6 figures, 12 to 14 hours to Colorado, I could have ran away with it. I could have been $250,000 richer just right then and there. Now, I would have had to pay a price for taking that money. Probably wouldn't have been able to come home, but it's just the fact of saying like you have to chase something fulfilling. You have to chase something that makes you grow. This is why, even though I was not raised in a religious household, I think I see the most growth out of people who find their calling in faith. And it's like you adopt a community. You become selfless. It becomes so much less about you, and it becomes so much more about spreading a message that other people should be excited to be a part of. You know, like seeing Mark and Matt and their faith, for example. It's inspiring. These are 2 guys who've been to prison, who've had very, very hard lives, harder lives than I have.
Oh, yeah.
I just had to be very honest with myself about saying what I was doing wasn't working. And when I surrounded myself with good people and good work, and my recreation didn't have to be like, be the messed up guy, or be the guy who's so proud that he's messed up and can hide it. Because even to this day, anyone who sits in like a session with me, they're like, dude, are you even like stoned? I'm like, yeah, but you just can't tell. Like, you kind of look like how you always do. I'm like, what does that tell you? It's not really impacting me the way it used to. It becomes very sad because you keep chasing that high, but nothing is ever like the first time you smoked weed, or for like the first 2 years you smoked weed, or when you were first able to drink and not get in trouble, or first time you did any drug. It's like that first time, it's always a chase to get back to that. And it's diminishing returns each and every time. What has increasing returns is investing in people and finding the right people. You don't just have to invest in the people from your old neighborhood who are doing the same old shit you don't want to be a part of. You need to find, like, when you and I have a very similar background. I would also say there's a lot of things about us that are different. Well, that's good because I learn a lot from you. You learn something from me, I would expect.
Yeah, I learn a lot from you.
Different. Me and Zach Vegas, different. We always have something that connects us, but I don't want to be around people who are just like me all the time. I want to take something from someone and I want to give back to them. And the fact is also this, is that now that I'm in my 30s, I'm 31. I think back to the person who I was, and now I think to today, like, you're a new father. I wouldn't want me around my kid back in the day. I wouldn't want to be that influence on your kid back.
Absolutely
in the
not.
No, I just met your dad. Sweet guy. And he goes,
he's awesome.
And it's just like, he goes, I could see some similarities from y'all in the past. I'm like, oh, Sam's just a little bit more urban, huh?
Dude, I mean, I 180'd my life like crazy. And I think one of the biggest factors of that was accountability. And the fact that and at the beginning, I would shy away from accountability. And I think anybody that kind of is faced with that, initially they do,
it's
right?
Not my fault.
They hide from it, right? It's not my fault. I can do whatever I want, whatever, thoughts are going through their head that are just not true, right? But accountability, if you can actually be held accountable and you're part of a good community, I guarantee your life is going to turn upside down. It's going to be night and day, and you're going to love the new you, really, because one of the reasons why I'm such a big advocate for community is because of the community that I'm in now and the people that have surrounded me. And you have to be surrounded by people that you respect in order to be held accountable and actually let it work.
Yes.
Right. If you are surrounded by people that you don't respect for whatever reason, and then they try to hold you accountable, you're going to be like, oh, well, no. And you can still be held accountable and be mad about it. Right. But then when you actually look at it from a 100-foot view, you're like, dude, I really respect that guy. He told me where I was screwing up and I don't like it.
Absolutely.
But I know I need to change it. And that's one of the hardest things to do. But once you can get a grasp on that, I mean, your life's going to change.
You are completely right. And when I got to First Form, especially, because when I was in Springfield still, like, I was just working odd jobs, and I was like, there were good people. Don't get me wrong. Like, I have a big brother figure who I met working at Big Whiskey's on Republic Road. And I looked at him because he went to prison for a few months, and he had multiple kids that he was taking care of and doing a really good job of it. But like, he was on drug court. So like, he couldn't mess around. And by the time it was all over, he didn't want to mess around. That was like looking at the first guy, and I was like, okay, there's someone doing the right thing. How is his life better? I saw his relationship with his kids and it was very inspiring. I saw his relationship with God and that was very inspiring. And for me, I looked at what I was surrounding myself with. And don't get me wrong, restaurants will teach you a lot, especially about service, which is one of your favorite words.
Absolutely.
If anybody needs to learn about sales, if you need to learn what your time is actually worth, you need to learn to be a part of a team, and especially sucking it up and doing the work that you just don't want to do, get a restaurant job. 6 months to a year. And if you apply the right intent, you will come out of it a different person. You cannot wait to get the hell out of there. But I noticed in Springfield, I'm like, okay, I'm 26, credit's not great, money situation's not great. I'm doing all this personal development because I was reading, I was working out, I was powerlifting, which cool. I mean, I'm a stocky little guy. I'm 5'8". I still could trend somewhere between like 170 and 200 at a healthy weight now. And so I was like, dude, I'm strong. I'm capable of things. I can do a lot of good. But I was like, I got to do something else. And the thing is that like I had to take a step back in a lot of ways because I knew what it was like to pay rent at this point. Like I was pretty responsible in the place I lived. Any holes I punched into anyone's walls, I always fixed them. I never got my deposit back, but I always fixed them. Thank you. And I had hit up a buddy who had gone through some of the same things I had, not to the level of you or me, and not to the point where like he got in trouble for it, but we went to high school together. And he had done really well with S2 in first form. And I was like, well, what's it like to work there? He goes, dude, it's a lifestyle. And it's exactly the point you made about accountability. He goes, there's not going to be someone to quote unquote hold your hand. There's going to be someone who holds your ass to the fire, and the fire burns bright, but you can stand the heat. You can continue to do the right thing. You'll be handsomely rewarded for it. And I was like, or what do I have to lose? And the step back I had to take wasn't the fact that, I always said I'll never move back to St. Louis. Here I am 5 years later after moving back to St. Louis. I always wanted to move to another state, which still I believe is in my future. But when I got to first form, it was like, oh, everyone's fit. Everyone's doing personal development. And everyone has something that they're chasing after. And they will make sure that you don't mess it up for them. And for like the first 6 weeks, I just didn't get it. I did not get it. I was like, what is this? Because I'm still kind of like a lone wolf. I'm not the greatest team player to this day. So getting outside of myself, taking that step back from like, okay, I'm making like $40,000 a year serving tables. I'm going to bring that down to like $30,000 a year, making $12 an hour in a warehouse at first form. I'm going to stop paying rent for a place where I have privacy to do what I want. And I'm going to start living in my parents' basement for the next 6 months. I'm accountable to the people at first form, and Andy and Sal, they're everywhere. They will see if you're doing something to mess up their business, and they will let you know, hey, don't do that. It probably will not be that quick and easy either, but regardless. And at the same time, I'm in my mom's basement paying $400 to sleep on her floor. Like I didn't have a bed. I was sleeping on like old sofa cushions from like lawn furniture, honestly. And I just had like my old grandma's blanket, and it was really tough. And my parents honestly didn't understand why I came back either. They're like, well, you could be doing so much more financially. Go get a job at the railroad. And I was like, what does that have to do with me? I see potential in something. And finally, there are people who aren't just yes-manning me, the people who I used to do drugs with, used to party with, and used to be in the fraternity with, which no shade on my fraternity. But there were some people who had wrong intent there. That's okay. I like to party too. Way less than I used to. You have to have people around you that inspire you and encourage you to be more. And I'm not a kid anymore. As much as I'd like to believe that I am a 31-year-old kid, I'd say you're more of a man than I am. I'd say Zach Vegas is more of a man than I am. I'd say Matt is more of a man than I am. And that's not excluding anyone whose name I left out. It's like, what do those people all have going? Not only their own businesses, but they're committed to someone for life, bringing kids into this world. And it's set the next standard for me in terms of accountability. That next level of fulfillment isn't going backwards. It's continually moving forwards. Doesn't mean you won't mess up. I mess up a lot of stuff. I mess up stuff for you. I can admit it, but it's my fault. It's also my responsibility.
And you fix it.
I do. Or I give it to you for free.
Yeah. yeah. You fix it. And that's the important part. And I think that people don't focus on their goals enough when you talk about like, and a lot of people will say balance isn't the thing. I personally think that balance is a thing, and I think balancing your goals is really important.
Yes.
And I think having a good partner to pull you back in to make sure that you're actually balancing those is also super important. One thing that I absolutely love about my wife so much is that whenever I start focusing way too much on business, which I have a tendency of doing that, I go 100 miles an hour. I'm like, how many sales can I make this week? How many phone calls can I knock out? Who can I serve the most? Right? Because ultimately it's because I do want to help people. I do want to serve people. I do want to help them make more money.
Yeah.
And so I'm really passionate about it, and I can get a little bit too deep. And then all of a sudden my stuff at home starts to go a little bit south, right? Or I'm not working out as much, or these other areas of my life that I really said that, hey, I want to be successful here, don't really start coming together the way that I want to. But my business is booming. Things are growing, right? But one thing that my wife is so good at is she's like, hey, we made a bunch of money last month, but I haven't seen you. And I'm like, yeah, you have. And then I'm like, hold on. I go back over my schedule for the past 4 weeks, and yeah, you're right. We haven't seen each other very much, and we need to do that because you're more important than my business is every single time.
The business is important because of you.
Yeah. I mean, exactly. Yeah, exactly. I mean, I make money here because I want to be able to provide for us, right? And I help people because I feel like it's my calling, right? But where can we keep all of those things in check? And I think it comes to your 4 goals. And faith for me is the number one because that keeps me rooted in my other ones. Then family, then finances, then fitness. Fitness is important and it's still on the goals, but there's a reason why it's last, right? For me. And then family comes after faith because the reason that I work, the reason that I make money is to support my family, right? And then finances comes next because my finances are what goes to support the rest. And then my fitness, just because I don't want to die by the time I'm 45 with a heart attack, right? That's kind of why I work out. It's not so I can like have a 6-pack. I don't have a 6-pack. It's not because I want to be able to bench 300 pounds. I don't bench 300 pounds, right? It's because I want to stay healthy so that I can keep doing these things to provide for my family.
Longevity is the key.
Longevity.
And you're completely right. When it comes to goals, I think a lot of people are just not clear on what they want. A lot of people say, I want to make a lot of money, but why do you want to make a lot of money? The money's great, but if it's not gonna be served as a utility for something that brings about goodness in your life, then just having a lot of money won't make you happy. If you had $500,000 in a safe, you had $1 million in a safe, but you didn't know what to do with it, you didn't know how to invest it, you didn't know how to donate it, you didn't know what to spend it on. Oh, I've got 7 figures of money. So you're not any more complete of a person. You could be the most fit person ever and still be the most unhealthy person ever on a mental and emotional level. And it's something that the idea of balance has long been a struggle for me even. I've often lived in the mindset that because I partied really hard for 5 years, that I needed to run myself into the dirt for 10 years to make up for that. But that's not true. I believe in balance, but I also accept that it's a balancing act. For me, do I need much to be happy? I really don't. I need good people. I need the bare necessities. I need a little bit of adventure. And a little bit of adventure, you know me. I go to Orlando, Miami, Vegas, and maybe Chicago. Those are going to be like my 4 places I go quarterly. Not each quarter, but like each quarter I like to go to at least one of those places. And I go to live music festivals. I spend time with people though. I'm not just going for the party of it because I'll go to a show sober. I don't care. I want to meet with my people. I want to create memories. And if that means I don't go out drinking on the town, cool. St. Louis bars don't need any more of my money. If that means I don't go out eating in expensive restaurants all the time, that's fine. What am I doing though? I'm working, I'm meditating, I'm stretching, I'm doing my fitness, I'm doing combat sports, which I hold a little separate from fitness because it requires fitness, but it is almost a spiritual discipline. Like you really have to be upfront with yourself when someone like Zach is choking the life out of you. She's very good at it. Stop arm barring me. Dick. Just kidding. And I even I texted you this morning at 6 a.m. I was like 10. And I wake up at 9 again. You're like 10. Oh yeah, we're podcasting. I'm like, cool. You look at my story, you're like, dude, go to bed, you insomniac. I'm like, this was one of the nights there was no balance. And it's my own fault. It's my own responsibility because I take on a lot of work from people. I have podcasts to produce for people. I have reels to write for people. I have a lot of copywriting and things and profile management to do. I have my own brand to take care of. Sometimes it means you get up at 8:30 on Wednesday and you don't go to bed until 6:30 a.m. Thursday, and you get here at 10:30 a.m. to do a podcast. I don't think I look that tired. I think I look all right. But as much as you want to make balance a thing, you have to be prepared for it not to be a thing. And I don't think there's anyone who exemplifies this better in my life than Andy, because I don't know where he finds the energy. Dude barely drinks caffeine, but he just made a decision. I want my life to look a certain way. For 25 years, just put in work. Doesn't win every day. Sometimes he wakes up at 5 a.m. and doesn't go to bed till 11:30. That's when he gets off the phone. But that's the life he wanted.
He was able to create a crystal clear vision and then stick to it.
Visualizing.
Yeah, I think creating that vision, and I joined this business mastermind group, but not too long ago, and they harp on vision.
Arte?
Huh? No, it's a leadership boardroom.
Okay.
Yeah. It's some of the highest earning entrepreneurs that I've ever met are a part of this. I mean, I'm like a very, very small fly on the wall here. And I love that, because that's exactly where I want to be in my community. Is I want to be a small fly on the wall so I can learn from all these other people. Right. And the one thing they harp on so much is vision. Right. And if you have a crystal clear vision, then all you've got to do is follow your path to get there. Right. And if you don't know how to create that path, you can surround yourself with people who have, and you have this vision, you bring it to them and they help you create the path. Right. And sticking to your vision, you're sticking to your vision and letting it unfold in front of you it's beautiful, because you get to see your goals achieved. Right. And it's fun along the way too. But hey, I want to ask you a couple particular questions about social media, because you are really good at it. You help people's accounts grow. You have grown your own account. But what would you say the key to providing value on social media is?
So I think that's an awesome question. And when I think of providing value, there's 3 real ways that you can do that. And this is straight from everything that I learned at First Form. I mean, I think first and foremost, it becomes the point of saying, like, what are you good at? Like, I'm not just good at social media for the sake of, like, I just woke up and was good at social media. Social media is, it's social, it's communicative, community. And I have the ability to communicate and bring people together. So when you think about, like, my story, for example, I'm really well versed in storytelling. I was an English major. As useless as it may be, like, it gave me some utility. So what am I able to do with that? Well, I'm able to educate people. I'm able to say to you, hey, if you're thinking about going down this path in life, don't do that, because here's what happens if you do, but here's what happens if you don't. If you want to learn about credit cards or finances, I'm actually pretty well versed in the points and miles game, how to improve someone's credit scores. I can teach someone something there. Fitness and nutrition. I mean, I was not only just a sales coach, but I was a personal trainer as well. And I'm pretty well versed in at least basic nutrition, the things you can learn from, like, your local personal trainer at your local big box gym, or one of the guys at S2 here in St. Louis, or a First Form advisor. The fact is that, like, I'm credible and I'm relatable, so I'm able to teach people something as well. The second form of value is inspiring people, being able to impact people. If you live a garden variety life, you are going to give garden variety advice. You're going to tell garden variety stories, which is dime a dozen. One of the biggest things about social media is I don't follow trends. Like, be a trendsetter, do not be a trend follower. Be willing to be different, because while everyone's doing the stupid TikTok dance, letting you know, like, oh, I'm Zach actually said this in the podcast we did not long ago, dance monkey dance, which is very true. There's something inspiring about that. Now, it can be entertaining, which entertainment is still value, but you just have to be correct with yourself about what it is you have to offer, and you have to be okay with getting started. I started out my Instagram just like anyone else did. I had 0 followers. I then deleted Instagram for like 4 years. I started up in 2017 and my page still had like 450 followers. And through the last 7 years, it was just endlessly, I'm going to put myself out there. I'm going to show myself working out. I'm going to show myself reading the books. I'm going to talk on camera. Later on in life, I got really well versed in politics and current events. And I talked about it from the perspective of a middle American 30-year-old taxpayer here in St. Louis, Missouri, a blue city in a red state. Kind of like me. I'm very libertarian, live and let live. But you have to know what you're good at, and you have to be willing to give it away for free. Mm-hmm. And if you can teach people something, or if you can impact them, or you can make them laugh and smile, You figure out which one of those you're really good at, and don't be afraid of diversifying. Don't always be the funny guy. Definitely don't always be the inspirational guy either. Because I'm sorry, it comes off corny after a while. I woke up today and I brought all my groceries in one trip. No one cares. Now, I was in a jail cell thinking about ending myself, and I decided, it'd be really cool if I told this story from the perspective of someone who got away from that. That's inspiring. You also have to find new inspirations. You also have to find new things to teach people. Never stop learning. I think knowing what you're good at and giving it away for free and filling into at least one of those 3 slots, that's the biggest thing that I can offer is to answer your question.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I mean, that's valuable too. Yeah. The gift that gives, right? The gift of giving, and giving knowledge and value, right? That's, you can't put a sticker price on that. You can't.
I could try.
You could try. We'll see. So where do you see your business going? What are your dreams for your business?
It's funny because right after I left First Form, I asked for a private session with Andy. But besides being my employer and my role model and the guy who he is in like the personal development space, he is also my friend, and he is actually like my friend. We have a lot in common. And I asked him that question. I said, what do you see me doing long-term? He goes, you're going to invest in your personal brand more than you are your media business, which I definitely agree with. As far as Paradigm Media, which is my photo, video, social media management, and kind of marketing agency, it's kind of a catch-all, just media company more than anything else. I actually see that moving into like live events. I still want to produce podcasts for everybody. I still want to be able to help people with their personal brands. And I don't think that will be something I ever stop doing, because I want to help people grow more than I want to help myself grow on social media. But as far as what I wanted to do, it's actually funny because my first set of DJ decks actually got dropped off right on my way here. I saw the box on my front porch. I'm like, I can't leave that out. It just got here from Japan. And so I threw that in my trunk. I would like to start filming, like getting paid to film like festivals and parties and things of that nature, just because the authenticity at those things cannot be faked. Guests at a wedding can fake how happy they are for you. Like, all right, let's get to the reception. You know what I'm saying? There's just something about that, like going to Ultra and seeing people who this is the one thing they'll do a year, and they're headbanging and they're hugging and they're laughing and they're crying. I love getting that on camera. I love living that. I want to do it from the stage. I want to do it from behind security. I want to have the full media pass, and I want to be really well known for doing that. But I also, if you ever go to a show or anything with me, man, like I might as well be the DJ. I'll have better energy than the DJ. Like I headbang, I throw my hands up, I do the ooh, ooh. Like I very much am an entertainer, and I would love to have more of a public persona where I'm getting on stage and doing something. Some people tell me I should do comedy. I don't think I'm that funny personally. I think I'm just very blunt and honest. And other than that, I just kind of keep an open mind that I think the most successful people I've ever looked up to, they didn't just do one thing. Like Andy's not just the guy who runs First Form. Like he's got his hands in a lot of things. Sal isn't just the president or now CEO of First Form. He does a lot of things. You aren't just a real estate agent either. Zach isn't just a real estate agent. Kyle Watson is not just the guy who owns Watson's MMA. I could go on and on. It's that I want more public opportunities. I definitely want to help more people grow, but I also, while there's that entertainer side of me, I want to be able to leave myself open to possibilities, because there could be something I could be really good at that I haven't started yet. I get started and be like, all right, I don't care about any of that other stuff now. Mm-hmm. I'm open to that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Being able to find what you're good at and then find what you love and then combine the two of them, that's a life you want to live.
And stuff people will pay you for too.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. Stuff people will pay you for. And that's building a business that you can have fun with, right? And for me, helping people make money in real estate, I think is a lot of fun.
Yes.
It's a lot of fun for me.
Going back to your question before real quick, I have 3 pillars of what I call effective social media. This is per me. This isn't one of those things you look up online. It's like, oh, Murph got this from somewhere else. No, it's not like that at all. Number 1 is just be yourself. You cannot be anyone else. You can try, but remember the Olsen twins? Mm-hmm. Mary Kate can never be Ashley, and Ashley can never be Mary Kate. Dylan and Cole Sprouse, The Sweet Life of Zach and Cody. They might look alike, but they will never be the same person. Being able to define who you are and what you have to offer is what allows you to be valuable in the first place. Educate, inspire, and entertain. The last piece is have fun. I have a lot of fun doing what I do. It's not always easy. In fact, it's rarely ever easy. Like sometimes we're meeting out in front of Ballpark Village, trying to shoot a promo for something. It's raining and the light's all messed up. And we're like, I don't like how I look there, but it's like, okay, we're going to figure it out. Figuring it out is fun. Getting up on social media and saying exactly what I thought, and people be like, well, what do you have any right to talk about that? I have the balls to talk about it. That's the only right I need. Now I can be wrong. It's my responsibility to admit when I'm wrong. But I'm going to have a lot of fun with doing it. If it stops being fun, stop doing it. There are very few things in life that like I can just stop doing because they're not fun. If I decide to put down a camera or to put down a microphone, it's just because I'm not enjoying it anymore. You can't stop being a parent because it's not fun though. You can't stop being a good spouse because it's not fun though. That's a commitment. And that's a different kind of commitment. Running a business, like I know all kinds of people who all their businesses have failed and they went on to do something very successfully. I was like, what was the secret? They're like, well, I was obsessed with having fun with it. I don't want my life to be boring. I want my life to be fun.
Yeah. And that comes from passion. So if there's anything that I think people should get out of this podcast today, it's do something you're passionate about because that's where you're going to bring the most value. And that's something that I've seen you unfold over the past years that we've known each other. Not long, really. I mean, about a little bit over a year that we've known each other, but watching you unfold, that has been fun for me, and being able to help support that and helping me with my content generation has been really, really fun too. So Murph, thank you for coming on, brother. I appreciate it, and I'm excited to keep working together.
I'm excited to keep working together as well. And dude, just it's been a pleasure and a privilege to see you turn into the person you have over the last year. Like, it's very cool for me too. So never discount the fact that I get to be a part of your journey.
To a good journey.
Amen.
Cheers.